Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Majorvation Podcast, where we talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. Today's guest is a transformational force whose story is so powerful, and his presence is as well. Garrain Jones is a amazing author. He's a speaker, creative guy known for helping people radically transform their lives by connecting with their inner child and authentic self-expression. Once homeless and directionless, Garrain experienced a profound awakening that led him to shift his mindset, reclaim his truth, and dedicate his life to empowering others. Now widely known as the Wizard of Art, Garrain blends emotional vulnerability, artistic expression, and deep spiritual insight to guide thousands towards healing, creativity, and self-leadership. As the creator of the Artist's Power program, he teaches that true freedom and prosperity begins with living in your fullest, most expressive truth. And his mission is clear: to awaken the world through art, authenticity, and inner alignment. Garrain Jones, welcome to the Majorvation Podcast, my brother.
Man, oftentimes when people share these introductions, I try to take myself out and listen as if I was a new listener. And if I was a new listener, I'd probably be like, "Damn, I want to hear from this dude." So I just want to say thank you for having me on and being brave enough to have a show like this. So stories like mine could have wings.
I think that you are a shining example of what needs to be highlighted more, not even just from a cultural standpoint, just from a human standpoint. Because from everything that I've seen that you've done, and I get into the questions in a second, but just to kind of add context to that, it's been something that was very intentional. And it's interesting because I was looking at a video a while back from you, and just, when people see you now, obviously they're going to see like this success and you're at a certain level, right? But people don't know the grind before that, and then those steps that it took to get to this particular point. And not to say that I've been there, but we've known each other long enough to kind of see on the outside looking in each other's steps in evolution and growth. For you, are there many moments where you step outside of that, similar to what you did now, listening to the bio? It was like, dang, I've really manifested this, because I saw a video. It was like 10, 12 years ago, and you were in your apartment and you was manifesting, I am great, and I'm gonna do this because I want to, like all those affirmations. And people don't know how powerful they are. I use them still to this day. I got one I say every single morning that's on my medicine cabinet window. And literally, I've been only doing it for like 2 years, and it's changed so much in my life. How important was that process to you now? And do you stand outside of yourself sometimes like, dang, I really manifested this through my words and also your actions as well?
What's funny about that, I literally watched that video right before we got on the call. That video that you're talking about, because it allows me, you can't see the picture while you're in the frame,
Yeah,
and you can't grow what you don't measure. So
right.
that's what I love about Facebook. That's what I love about Facebook Time Hop and old videos. You can go back to somebody 10 years ago. You can see what they were on. You can see when there was a change. You can see
When
they
they
were
when they when they didn't
Republican or
have
Democrat.
hair, when they didn't have hair, now that they have hair.
All the things. And so I literally used to shave my head bald because I was too lazy to grow my hair. Like you can see all those things. And and like I said, you can see when somebody used to be a Democrat or a Republican. I've always been up the middle my entire life. So if you go back fifth grade, I've been the same. It's been the same personality. They're like, why don't you pick a side? Fuck all y'all. Like, I don't want to do this thing because I don't like either. And so, and I think it's the part of me who's been the disruptor, the class disruptor, not doing things the way that it's supposed to be done. I've been disrupting every industry I've ever been in, but it's the same personality. So anytime if I'm hiring somebody, And this is for anybody out there. If you ever hiring anybody, go check their social media and look 10 years back. You can see who they hang out with, what they get mad at, what they complain about, what's inside, if there was growth, because people typically share what they're masking or they share their emotions. And so, yeah, no, it's, I look at it often, and I look at people who I connect with often, because I love to see the makeup of a person. So I'm not just dealing with the person who I'm meeting now. At least I got a depth of, okay, where are they coming from? And what are their likes and dislikes and things of that nature. I love that.
One thing I noticed, obviously having your background as a performer, as a songwriter, as an artist, the one video has two proponents I want to ask you about. You were doing a cover for, was it Sam Smith? First of all, do you remember that you did a cover
Oh
song?
yeah, yeah. When I was laying on the couch.
Yeah, so you land on the couch, and the one thing that stuck out to me beyond the song, you did a great job, but it was the watch. Well, hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for watching another episode of the Majorvation Podcast, where we hope to inspire, uplift, and encourage you to become the best version of yourself. One of the things that we have noticed is that, yes, we do get some really good views on this page, and we are currently growing and just working to engage with our community as much as possible. But we do ask that if you view the video, if you like the videos, for sure, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment, leave a feedback, leave some feedback and leave a question for, the guest or even myself. We want to make this page the go-to hub for inspiration and motivation and personal development. So once more, thank you so much for watching the episode. Thank you so much for sharing the episode. And thank you so much for subscribing. There are so many more interviews that we have that are upcoming, and they're going to be really good. I think you're really going to enjoy them. So thank you guys so much. And as always, stay majorvated. What watch was that you was wearing? Because I'm a watch fanatic. Do you
Was it
remember?
the red and white one?
Yes.
Okay, so I at that time I was doing triathlons, and it's a Garmin watch from 2000 and whichever that year was, you can find them on Amazon. But because I needed a durable enough watch that can go swimming while I'm cycling, and I can measure all those things, and that was the hottest triathlon watch at the time.
Oh, nice. And that bike I saw in your video was fire as well. And the reason why I did this is that I've watched many of your videos and the people interviewing you and stuff. So I want to come with a little bit more complexity, some off script type of stuff to ask you some of those questions. Before we jump
Yeah.
into the obvious, right, in regards to, just your mindset and just your journey as well, so we can share that with the audience. But I want to throw you a curveball in the beginning when it comes to that. So,
No, it's so on target that I was watching the video before you got on the call. So we synced up on some wavelength because I was watching the same video that you, and I haven't seen that in about 5 years.
that is so wild. Literally like 30 minutes ago, I was definitely watching it. So in the bio mentions it says reclaiming truth through inner child creativity. Can you unpack how that process transforms someone's life?
Well, I have a saying that says adults are deteriorated children.
Hmm.
And when you look at just the typical everyday child, early on, not like when they go to and get hooked by public education system that'll steal your whole soul. I'm talking about when you see a child that's pushing buttons, opening up cabinets, having all this unlimited creativity and unlimited energy, and they're just in the wonderment of life. They're all pretty much the same. They're different, but you can tell that those little kids are the closest thing to God before you start watching all the cartoons and going to assembly lines and get hooked by the poisonous food and the poisonous water and the poison of media. Before that happens, you can see there is a sweet soul of a child. That child is inside of every adult. But it took me to go to prison, serving a 12-year sentence. I got out in 2.5 years without snitching. Um, but it took me to go to prison in order for me to find freedom. And so, as we were watching movies once a month in France, it was a prison called Longness Prison. We were watching Shawshank Redemption, which is a movie that's based out of prison. And Tim Robbins, the main actor, he said, they can take anything they want away from me, but they can't take away my mind. And in that moment, I became free. And I said, what would a free person do? And then a voice inside said, Garrain, everything you used to love to do as a child. And I was like, where'd that voice come from? And everybody has that hunch. I don't know. A little birdie told me, something inside told me, and it ends up being right most of the time when you listen. And that voice said, everything you used to love to do as a child. I remember I loved art. I remember I loved running. I remember I loved motivating people, even when I was 5 years old. And so I started doing everything in prison that I used to do as a child. And something about that was like making my brain feel calm. I started being more creative again. I started winning art competitions while I was in prison. And it sounds crazy to say, but in losing my freedom, I discovered my freedom. Interestingly enough, I realized that there's a different level of freedom. Outside freedom ain't real freedom. That's why you see a bunch of free people who are suffering. That ain't freedom. It's the power to possess your own mind and have joy, a joyful spirit, because your soul will be liberated. And I found that in prison. And when I felt free, 2.5 years of my prison sentence, they called me into the office and they said, Jones, 90% of the drugs, I got busted for smuggling drugs. Jones, 90% of the drugs were fake. And for the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home. What? So I've invested since 2005, the last 20 years, trying to discover what was that powerful that it could override anything that a human could come up with. And I kept coming back to energy, frequency, and vibration, which is all God, and Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventive wizards of all times, said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. I'm like, oh my goodness, we all have that inside of us. Oh, we're created in God's image. Oh, wait a second. So if that means if I can look in the mirror and see God through my eyes and come from the divinity within, I'm going to always be guided and protected. So unconsciously, that's what I did. Now, what happened is I saw why little kids have so much energy. And that power is God's power, because they're the closest thing they're the closest thing once they come into this human reality. And I discovered that in prison.
That's amazing. I had an incident, well, not an incident, I had a scenario. I think it was like the day before yesterday. I was in the backyard with my sons, and well, just one of them at the time. And I was on the phone, I was checking messages, and he wanted to play kickball, right? They have crazy energy, right? So I'm sitting on a stool, I'm on my phone, and just to appease him, I'm rolling the ball to him, and he's kicking it, going to get his own ball, so I'm not getting him out. I'm just rolling it. And he's having the best time of his life. But something told me in that particular moment to put your phone down, get off your butt, and actually roll the ball and engage with him. Like, get your energy together, get it in check. You have a choice to turn your energy on. I'm not as tired as I say that I am, or I think that I am. And I end up having the best time ever, only because I saw how he lit up when I stood up and gave him that attention. And just, and it was like, so you're spot on when it comes to just, that intention, that energy, and that frequency as well. One of the things that I've seen you do in the past is in great success that I've seen, that I've studied from mentors and people that I've watched from afar, although they've had certain successes and accolades or even financial status, they have an infinity to give back. And when I see you do these free calls and these conversations with people online, which I think is great, how, is that something that was embedded in something strategic, a part of the business model, or is that something that just comes from you naturally and you say, you know what, I have to continue to serve no matter, even if I have a business model? Because some people get swayed like it's just a business, it's just a service. But I see you kind
Got
of
it.
flip the script when it comes to that.
Yeah. I will share with you this. Man pays in money, God pays in your whole life. God's abundance ain't dollars. Now, dollars is a part of it, but that's the least of all values. The abundance of nature, when you look at the flowers, they all bloom at the same time. So a successful life should all bloom at the same time, especially if it's of God. Now, you can overcompensate and you have all this money and you don't have no relationship with your family or your wife or your husband. And then so you all what you I can always tell from a mile away if somebody's overcompensating, because I don't look at your money. I look at the fruits of your life. So what I learned when I was homeless, I didn't learn this when I had money. I learned it when I was living in my car, $250,000 in debt, 2.5 years, sleeping in an abandoned building, sleeping in my storage unit on bubble wrap, trying to make it seem like everything in my life was going great. Yo, Gary, Steph, because I used to go by my middle name, Stefan. Yo, Steph, I'm trying to get like you. And I'm like, fuck, man, I want to die right now. But the driving light for me is, and I didn't know what I was doing at this time, so I'm speaking from connecting the dots, looking backwards on my life. I would be in my storage unit, and I had 125 videos on YouTube. And you know what the title of the videos was called? The Storage. And nobody knew I was living in my storage. It just was all white walls, great lighting. And so I was I would come up with so many ideas. Nobody knew I was living in my storage. And so what I learned was, regardless of your circumstance, when you can be in service with something that God has blessed you with, it's going to always come back. Not in your time, but it's going to always come back. I didn't even know at that time that it was going to come back. It just felt good to my system. So I was doing anything that I could that felt good, because if I let up, then the weeds of your mind will take over. I'm homeless. I'm living in my car. So it made me feel better. Even with the circumstances I was in, it made me feel better to help somebody out. Now, it wasn't until I started working people out at Runyon Canyon. I'm training people for free every Saturday. I'm teaching them what I knew about nutrition. I'm motivating them up and down the mountain. And people were just showing up. I mean, it was like 90, 100 people. It started out with 3 people, and I just kept showing up. They're like, wow, you're here early every single time. They didn't know it's hard to get parking right up at the top of Runyon Canyon. So I would park there the night before, and I would wake up there. So I'm like literally sleeping in my car at the time. And I just kept doing it, and I kept doing it, and I had so much joy. People were meeting, people getting married, people were starting business. I never asked for $1, not $1. The very next opportunity I had was a health and wellness company. And you know what they told me that they do? We work people out for free. We teach them about nutrition, and we make money doing that. And that's where I made my first million within 3 years. And I say, oh, I see how you work, God. I was doing the exact same thing. So it was almost like God was putting me to a test to see if what I wanted is what I really wanted. So here I am with no home, no money. I'm in debt. My mom dying in the hospital. My daughter disowned me. I mean, you name it. And still serving others. And the very next thing was doing exactly what I was doing. And so therefore, when other people weren't making it, their intent was off. My intent was service, building up humanity, raising their vibration. And I was watching the mothers have better relationships with family and everything. You don't get paid for money. I mean, for time, you get paid for the value that you add to the marketplace in an allotted time. So I was like, oh, so that's where it started. It started when I didn't have anything, but that's when I realized your energy is worth more than your money. So I do have energy. Why? Because that's what God blessed us with. So if I can bring that, oh, that's a rich resource. This is why they poison the water, poison the media, poison the food, and they do all this other stuff. Why? Because they want your soul. They don't want you to think for yourself. That's a rich resource. They did it to all the lands. They done it in Africa. Why wouldn't they do it to you? 100%. Anything that's a rich resource, let me take that. I learned that value, and you are not allowed to have my resource. That's between me and God. And so when you see me doing breakthrough coaching, that mentality started when I didn't have none of this. And so the reason why it keeps growing is because God don't pay in dollars. God pays in your whole life, and dollars are included.
Amen to that, man. I love that story. And one thing I was thinking about just listening to your story is that your story in itself is a legacy piece, you know. So although you're doing what you do now, but even in sharing that story or that story just being out there in the universe, you are impacting so many lives because so many people sometimes get stuck or think that they're experiencing something by themselves for the first time. And there's so much relatability in your story because, as you mentioned, it's harder to see the picture once you're in the frame. But if you're looking back, connecting the dots as you did, you're able to identify it. But that story, in saying that, is helping some people that may still be in that picture right now, that gives them some hope. So when you have people that come to you that, you know, their spirits may be broken, they may be going through some tough obstacles in regards to how you work, do you have a set framework on how you approach individuals, or is the process, do you extract the information first and find out those areas of need, and then you prescribe it somewhat like, you know, a doctor would? How do you approach that?
100%. So the main framework is always be willing to share your story. Any level of testimony matters. Somebody that comes from a single family home that learned how to have a whole entire family and they didn't have that when they were little, that's a testimony. And I learned that your testimony is the gateway that often breaks the ice because people listen to who they relate to. Like if I was talking to you right now and you were broke and homeless, but I had all this money, I'm like, yo, 7 steps for success. You were like, motherfucker, you don't really know what I'm going through. But if I said, I didn't know your situation, and I used to say I used to be homeless and 2.5 years and da da da, and I tried this, the whole time you're gonna reflect on your own story. So what I do is I'll put myself out there. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to talk about, you know, my mistakes. I'm not afraid to own my responsibility. And when I use myself, I will laugh at myself. I will cry if I need to release pain. And I'll talk about that. And I realize vulnerability is a superpower that we've been taught as a weakness.
Mm.
And so I've taken that weakness and realized that weakness has inspired millions of people So it's actually not a weakness, it's a superpower. So when I can share from that place and somebody is like, well, damn, maybe it can work for me. Because oftentimes when somebody is broken down and they're depressed and everything, they feel like they're the only person in the world going through that in their world. So the moment they're like, well, damn, I'm not alone. Damn, we share the same story. Damn, that's relatable. Damn, maybe I should read that book. Maybe it'll work for me. There's all of these possibilities and opportunities just by connecting deeply with somebody who's looking for a way out. And so this is why I post every single day since 2011. You're like, why do you post so much? Because I saw somebody on social media when I didn't want to live. And that somebody for me was Eric Thomas. Remember that I want to succeed as bad as I want to breathe? Bro, the first time I saw that video, I cried because I've never approached anything like that in my life. So if I was like, if I could get 1% better from whatever this is, I watch that video every single day. Like Eric Thomas was the OG, and that's what started my whole I was like, yo, I want to speak. I want to motivate people. I want to evoke people. And at first I used to talk like him. I was like, I got to get my own style. But like Michael Jackson had James Brown and Fred Astaire, and then he transcended into his own. So that's what it was for me. And so I was like, man, if somebody like Eric Thomas can reach somebody like me, and I ain't never met him before, well, then I know I can reach somebody. And the amount of people that I've gotten letters from prison, like kids, people that have been in and out of jail, people that couldn't crack $5,000 a month, that's now earning $185,000 a month passive income. I've reached so many people just by sharing my story and how I've done what I've done and things that I've learned and failures that I've had and overcome.
Yeah. No, that's so powerful. So during this particular journey and process, I know we talked about framework, but do you specifically have any non-negotiables that you could share with us today in regards to what keeps you in line? I know we kind of
Yeah.
mentioned, having certain mentors and advisors in place. Like, what are some of your non-negotiables?
I keep myself as a leader slash student simultaneously. I think those are the greatest leaders ever. People who are always willing to learn, and then they take what they learn and they share it with other people. So I have my programs that everything I've ever learned, I put in everything I do, because people are attracted to me for a reason. I don't want them to be attracted to me. I want to send them back to themselves. But let me share with you this education that worked for me. And then I also stay in rooms and I surround myself around people who have been doing what I'm doing for much longer than I'm doing, people who have earned more money, bigger businesses, have been motivating 10 times more people because they're doing something different and I want to learn from what that is. So I'm always a student and I stay around. And so some people invest in cars and shoes and purses and things. I invest in people to teach me more about myself because I think that's the greatest investment. I mean, people, oh my goodness, LeBron is so crazy for spending so much money on himself.
So everyone, real quick, I wanted to just share the amazing work that the Majorvation Podcast is doing. We're already getting so many great testimonials because of the guests that we've had on and the stories that they've shared and their actual testimonies about their success and their journey. And that journey and their successes are helping other people fulfill their missions in life. And that's super important. And that's the point and purpose of the Majorvation Podcast. We talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. And now we are expanding our reach and saying, hey, if you have a personal brand, if you have a business, if you have a service, and you would like to advertise on the Majorvation Podcast, feel free to reach out to us at the Majorvation Podcast at gmail.com or send me a DM or jump in the comments and we will follow back up with you. We have pre-roll, we have post-roll, we have also sponsored advertisements that are available slots for you. And this is the early bird because we're still growing and let's grow together. So reach out to us now. Get your opportunity to be seen by so many people with so many influential speakers on this podcast.
But meanwhile, he's still here, and then he playing basketball with people's kids. Like, so I'm looking at Tom Brady and I'm looking at LeBron, and I'm like, y'all ain't paying attention. They're breaking a mold. Oh, 10 years is the minimum. Oh, so now we here in year 24 and still one of the best players. And I'm like, it's not just the basketball. It's the stuff that you don't see. How he takes care of his body, what goes into his mental, what he keeps out of his body. I see that. And I'm like, I'll be 46 in 2 weeks. You cannot tell.
Yeah.
Because I look younger now than I did when I was 32. And I'm not trying to age younger. I just started taking care of my body, managing energy, see who I hang out with, see places I don't need to be. What am I watching? What am I listening to? What am I eating? What am I not eating? Those things matter to me because I want to live a long and prosperous life, have a son who's 10 months old, a daughter who's 3, and a daughter who's 23. So I want to be around and like agile and alive. So these things matter to me. And so my framework is I'm always leading, I'm always learning. And the one thing that I do every single day is I go sleep 9:30 p.m., conversation with God before bed, show me clearly. Let me borrow your eyes so that I can see what you see for me. I wake up in the morning, 4:20 a.m., because it's like I need to have at least an hour and a half, 2 hours to all me time before anybody can get me, because I don't want you getting my exhaust. I want you to get my overflow. I go run, I go pray, I go meditate, I have my food, I go working because I'm working on my album right now. I decided I was going to come back to music, working on my album. And then by the time 7:30 rolls around, I have tea time with my wife. Then my kids wake up and it's like, boom, that's a mandatory non-negotiable every morning. How can I serve me to my cup's overflow so that everyone outside of me benefits from my overflow?
Right. No, I think that makes sense, man. That's so good. I guess one of the other questions I want to ask you, how important is it having that union with your wife and as a partner, and how do your eyes look at that union? Is it is a business connection? Although yes, you're married, but is that a business connection or a partnership? And for the ones that are listening, how important is it to choose the right partner in marriage?
I will tell you, I'm probably the best person to ask for this because I was never getting married. I was going to be sleeping around with all these women and cheating on every girlfriend I ever had. So I was the least likely person to be a devoted husband. I can tell you that now. Um, I just wrote a list one day. I was like, if this person exists, I'm going to write down all the attributes. Color don't matter to me. I'm like, I'm gonna write down all the attributes. Loves God, can make her own money, but loves being taken care of. Great hygiene, book smart, loves fashion, loves kids, loves traveling. And I had 62 attributes on there. I was like, I'm creating an impossible person because I'm never getting married. But if somebody has this, they'll have my babies, and that is my part. I know it. And then I wrote on the list how I wanted to feel in the relationship, and then where I'd meet this person. Circle and star the one that has the most attributes to it, and it was a personal development seminar. 3 years later, I met Blair at a personal development seminar, and I didn't even know that she was the one on that list, but every time I hung out with her, just as friends, it was like something was lighting up inside of me. Now, it's strange because I'd never won. There was, this is how you know it's God. It went against everything that I could ever imagine. I would never marry a white woman. I would just, I mean, I mess around, but it was never in a million years. I was never going to be a devoted husband, never get committed, never having kids again. So it was like something, it was not even in the vicinity of my thought process. But every time I was just talking to her, it was like something inside was going, "Rrr." I was like, what was that? It didn't even make sense. We went on our first date and I saw something I'd never seen before in a woman, a future. And it did not make sense. It's like I looked at her, but I could see her as my wife. But I'm never getting married, but it don't make sense to me. And I'm looking at her and I can see her as the mother of our children. And that night I told her what I saw. It was the craziest, most boldest thing. And I was just like, well, this is what I see. You don't have to see it. This is what I see. 6 months later, we were engaged. And 7 months later, we were married. Now it's almost 7 years later. We got 2 babies. We want another one. And it was so important because I had no idea how much you could transform when a union is meant for each other. Mm-hmm. Like when God bring you somebody, you best believe you ain't gonna be the same person. She has challenged every single one of my weak points, and I challenged every single one of her weak points. Typically, that's where people quit. I'm like, no, because if you meet somebody that's just like you, y'all ain't gonna grow. You need this stair step. So right. We are 7 years removed from who we were. So the union is so important because I say one of the greatest ways to change the world is when you have a family, the dynamics that those kids, that the household that those kids grow up in is going to set the tone for who they be in the future. And I take pride in being a father who leans in, who educates his daughter, not only through my words, but through my actions, teaching my son by my actions because he sees how I treat his sister and how I treat his mother. People don't do what you say, they do what they see. So everything, all of this union feeds the family and the family feeds the world. And I'm looking at all of this unfold. And I think it's very, very, very important. How do you attract the right partner? You got to start with yourself. I wasn't looking for somebody to complete me. I was already doing the steps to fill myself. So I didn't need a woman to complete me like I did in the past, I had mama issues. So I was like, made every woman pay for the love I didn't get from my mom. So I would just close them off. All right, well, that's not a recipe for no one's ever going to fill that bottomless pit. And so when I started doing the self work, the communications work, the inner work, that's when I started attracting a different degree of people. And the moment I met my wife, I met who I really was, because who she was already an extraordinary person. So I got to see God's reflection show up as someone else, because there's no way I would have attracted that woman if I was who I was in the past.
Right. No, that's so powerful. And I agree with that 100%. That is I've talking to many people that have been very successful in that field. And I've talking to people who regrettably left those situations, but now they regret it, now that they've learned their lessons and they're trying to fight back to get their family. So whenever I come across individuals who kind of figured that out, I'm always just like giving your roses, because, to have that pushback could be difficult at times, but it's actually to extend you, and it's actually there to grow you. But Garrain, thank you so much, man, for joining me again on the Majorvation Podcast. As always, your conversation, your stories is so insightful, it's so powerful, and I can't wait to share this with my audience. And yeah, man, thank you so much for being you, brother. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
And let's do it again soon, man.
For sure.
All right, brother. We got like 10 seconds here. You want to let people know where they can find you.
So you can find me GarrainJones.com.
Come on, man, not you again. What can I do for you? Listen, how many times do I have to continue to tell you that I'm here for you? But there is a process. There is a strategy call that you can take advantage of. But this is what I do. Since you walked all the way over here, I'm gonna give you some free game. When I'm doing my public speaking, one of the greatest things that help communicators is simply breathing, looking at the audience and trying to make a connection with one or two people and start speaking from that perspective. Find something that's relatable that can bring everyone together, but at the same time, use my framework, USE, which goes along with my new digital book, Use Everybody. Use, unlock, S, shift, E, execute. Unlock, shift, execute. Get out of here.